how does that actually forgive sin?
Don't really know, man. Never really understood that one. Could never wrap my brain around how killing someone could forgive everyone else's sins.
Today we meet Dominic. He is somewhat impacted by New Age ideas, and he has an idea of spiritualism. He believes that all people can become God, or that they will ascend. Basically, this existence is hell right now. Now, of course, that doesn't align with what a Christian believes, and so we had a really interesting conversation. Now, that being said, I'm sorry about the audio. I thought my mic was turned on. It wasn't, and so what you're hearing is just out of camera audio. Definitely we'll fix that next time. There's always something, right? There's always something. With that being said, let's dive into the conversation and meet our friend here.
I think what happens when you die scientifically, the first thing is that a massive amount of DMT is released into your body for about 7 minutes, and you that's like you're welcoming into like the afterlife. Because I feel like, that place that you go whenever you do that is like a very similar place to the afterlife. When to go there, you have to completely dissolve your ego, you have to completely die, you have to let go of absolutely everything, just like you do when you actually die. But I think as far as like heaven and hell goes, I think we're already in hell, and I think everything after here is considered heaven. I feel like there's different levels to it though. Like I feel like there's like a top,
Yeah, so I picked up on that right away, different levels. So I immediately associate that with like Mormonism. It teaches that in a very common way. It's actually more universalistic. There's not really a concept of hell, but rather that God is love, and that hell, I mean, all those cult-ish style religions come out of this idea of like hating hell, like Jehovah's Witnesses and Mormons alike. They don't see that as compatible with God's character. And so this being a trial period, he's going to talk a little bit about reincarnation, a little bit about ego. So it's a huge mixed bag, and you'd be surprised at how common that actually is. And as a side note, you're going to notice a guy in the background. I met him. It seems like they had like a little bit of there's a little bit of a homeless camp set up around here. And so he may be homeless. I actually don't know. I didn't get into that. I didn't ask. But the homeless community is a really interesting one to engage with. I think we should love them, help them if needed, if necessary. I love sharing the gospel with them. It is difficult a lot of the time because there's a lot of mental health issues going on there, as well as they've heard the gospel plenty of times. And so it's different, but it's still very much so worth it. We love them. We go out of a desire of just loving God and loving our neighbor. And so I do recommend, if you are going to witness and speak to people that have very physical needs, bring something that will assist and help them. We look to bring help and aid in spiritual needs as well as physical, if possible. That goes for any ministry, really. Like my Forrest and I, we are out at the abortion clinic, and we want to make sure we have very physical resources ready for them, as well as spiritual. We want to make sure that the gospel is clearly heard, clearly perceived. And so if you're considering doing anything like this, that's just one of my highest recommendations. You want to go out needing and wanting to touch all areas of life. And we are not just spiritual beings, we are also physical. So let's continue.
I feel like there is a top tier level. I feel like that's where all like the gods sit and sit and drink coffee and talk about what we're gonna do today. But then I feel like everywhere in between is just, I feel like it's kind of like living here, but with a lot more wisdom, a lot more freedom in your body, because the body is very restricting.
Sure.
You're in constant agony for your entire life until you die.
So do you believe in God's existence then? Multiple gods, it sounds like?
Yeah.
So Yeah, I asked him, I started the conversation by simply asking if he believed there was an afterlife, and I just want to get your thoughts on that. It's a great way to intro any conversation you're in. And he gave me his thoughts, and so it sounded like he brought up things like gods and tears and heaven and hell. And so it's just such a natural way to move into, do you believe in God's existence? And I think that's incredibly impactful if you want to get to the gospel relatively quick. You're talking about the things of God almost immediately. So again, I can't recommend this highly enough. Just start by asking them what they believe about the afterlife. Anyway.
Like it would have to be definitely like multiple gods, and they don't have like names or anything. It's not like the mythical gods or anything. Okay. I just feel like, honestly, I feel like my theory on God is that everyone is a god and no one has realized it yet, except for the people who are actually gods.
So no one's realized it except for the people that have actually realized it. Maybe he thinks he is. And so I'm going to pick up on some of these inconsistencies, and it's obvious to me at this point that he has come to these conclusions not based on anything except just pure speculation or even drug use. And so I just want to touch down. I know this isn't like a hostile situation that I'm in. I know I'm not about to argue with him. And I think it's important to note that when you're in evangelistic conversations, not everything is an argument. And so I just didn't feel or see the need to argue. My voice is actually really quiet in this video. I'm just going to be talking kind of like I'm talking to the camera right now, talking really mellow, really, really slowly. I want to be careful with every word that I say. I know that that time is precious here, and this interaction, I believe didn't happen by coincidence. And so you just want to be able to read the room, and that takes practice. That does take practice.
Have you, so I talk with a bunch of different people,
right,
like different religions and everything.
I have absolutely no affiliation with any religion.
Yeah, so he said no affiliation with any religion. That actually kind of surprised me. I assumed he was ex-Mormon, and well, here, you'll see.
Okay, because it sounds really similar to Mormonism, actually.
That's weird. I was born in Utah, which is actually kind of a weird coincidence, but no, I don't affiliate with them.
Never a Mormon?
No.
Okay, because they would say something similar. They would say that, like, basically this is a trial period, that we all are going to heaven one day, that we're going to become our own gods one day.
Yeah, so I didn't represent Mormonism quite accurately there, but kind of the general impression. I just wanted to give him a general impression and see what his thoughts were. I really was curious to see if he had any ties to Mormonism way back when.
I feel like if you're an actual terrible person, you wind up back here. I feel like you only have like 1 or 2 tries on this. Like, I feel like everyone here, there's no such thing as like an old soul. I feel like if someone like chose to come back to Earth, I feel like they'd like come back.
Yeah, so now it's just getting a little crazy, a little chaotic. I mean, he's incorporating reincarnation, God, tier levels. He's disassociating himself with any kind of religion. So at this point, I definitely pick up on that. I pick up on what he's doing there, what he's doing. So yeah. Where to go in this conversation. I'm always curious to know where you guys would go next in a conversation like this if you are a Christian and you're having an interaction like this, because it gets a little complicated for me, honestly. I consider and think about just a variety of different ways I could navigate the conversation. And I always look back on these conversations that I have recorded, and I'm always thinking to myself, man, like, if only I said this and if only I said that. And so I think it's always refining. It's not primarily for him. It is, but it's also for my refinement and for my good that God brings these interactions to us and for us so that we would look more like Christ. We would be preaching. We would be going out and telling others about what Jesus accomplished. And regardless of it, whether we do it poorly or better, it doesn't really matter. I mean, God's going to get his way. He is God. He is so much more mighty than we are. We just go out with prayer and humility and with all boldness, declaring truth as it is said in the scriptures, and then trusting God for the results.
as like a cat or something. Cats are wise. They're like a dolphin. Why wouldn't you wouldn't want to live as a human? Humans fucking suck.
Okay, so who facilitates everything in your perspective? Like, who is like running the shots? Like saying, you go up here,
yourself.
You stay down here. Well, like, you get to stay right here because you were.
I think it's just I still think it's yourself. I think that everyone has that piece of God in them that is your God. I feel like you can't let yourself go on without learning everything that you need to learn here.
Okay, and so like who set that up?
Yeah, so he doesn't know. And that's so obvious right here. He does not know. And that is something that we need to key in on. He doesn't know. He has an awareness. He doesn't seem to like religion. What we need to do in these interactions is actually cut to the core of where someone is at. And I just didn't do that here as often as best as I could. So wish I didn't do it.
One of the 10,000 gods that are at the top.
It would have to be like a god above a god. You mean like whoever put those gods there, right? Like,
I don't know.
I mean, stop, right?
I don't think so.
All right. So let's skip a little bit of forward because it goes a little bit back and forth like this. Like there's a lot of I don't knows. I don't know what's happening. I can't really tell you for sure, which makes sense, right? It absolutely makes sense why he can't say that. So let's skip a little further down here. And I'm not skipping anything vital or critical. We're just kind of going back and forth, similar to what we were just doing.
You know?
Yeah, so there's white lies. Have you always told just white lies? Yeah.
So you see the Ray Comfort technique come out here. You see me bring up the 10 Commandments because he brought them up. And his views of religion are pretty negative. And so, of course, we want to go to the moral law because the moral law is a schoolmaster that leads us to Christ. It is the thing that points and continually points. All of the law really does this, whether it's the types and shadows in all the ceremonial law, or the moral law showing our inadequacy before God, or the judicial law even as being so lofty, so holy, so righteous, and we just know we don't measure up. We can't think of these things. Our minds just aren't that way. And so it all points us to Christ. And so if you don't use the law in terms of bringing it against the conscience, I do believe that is the biblical way to share the gospel. And if you are not, you're probably adopting a man-made, philosophical, pragmatic, evangelistic style. And I think we just got to stick to the biblical guns here. Stick to your biblical guns. So yeah, here we go. Let's continue.
So
I feel like that should be forgiven. It's like another one that's like anything that falls in like a gray area where it's not like black and white, like killing people. Thou shalt not kill. I agree with that. You shouldn't kill another human being. Or I mean, like, unless it's for food. If you really had to kill another human being for food, I guess do that. Because like it's not any different from like killing a deer for food. They still have a brain, it still has a soul, it still has a consciousness.
So would you object to someone killing you for food?
So I was being a little, just a little, I'm poking fun a little bit here. And that's purposeful to lighten the mood, but also his response is crazy. Yeah, if you're cannibalistic, you're hungry, go ahead.
It's just me on a stranded island. We're fighting to the death. Yeah.
Man, that sounds so sad. I got like a really low view. So, yeah. So I'm a Christian, and
okay.
I basically talk to people about their worldviews and try to break it down to where they are. And so I believe there's ultimate justice. If we don't have justice, the transcendentally being somewhere beyond ourselves, like you were talking, somewhere beyond ourselves,
right?
We don't have justice here. And so that justice, a quick summation of it was like the 10 Commandments. So it was cool that you brought that up.
Right.
So the 10 Commandments, we've all told lies, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we've all looked at women with lust.
Yeah.
And then Jesus even said, if you hate your brother, you committed murder in your heart. And so if that's the standard, and I'm just saying but if that's the standard.
You notice I said if, and that is a common technique if you're running into problems or issues, getting the message across. Say if, well, if this is the case, because oftentimes you can get in weird discussions that go on and on and on about nothing, but you just want to get it rolling, get their minds rolling, because honestly, if you are a Christian, you know this. We are in God's world. Like, we are in God's world. So the idea that our conscience doesn't attest to the things that I'm saying is just absurd if you take on a Christian worldview. Romans 1 says we suppress the truth. Well, that suppression is active, and that active suppression is ripped off when you bring up things like the moral law and what Jesus came to do and how we are saved. And so that is critical, absolutely critical to nail when you're evangelizing.
To truly hate someone, I guess, yeah. Because if you like truly hate someone and wish absolute foul harm on them, wish them to get hit by a car, like.
He agrees with Jesus here. Oh man, that's so good. That's so good. I love it. So let's skip a little bit further ahead.
Your mom's name is a cuss word.
It wouldn't roll off the tongue the same, but like if it did, sure. That'd be kind of funny, honestly.
Someone who gave you life and like in this.
Yeah, like yeah. You ever heard like, yeah, you're a son of a bitch? Like, yes she is. Like, she taught me right.
Okay, fair enough. So if that is the standard, right? If that is, if you die, let's say this, and I'm just saying if,
right?
Now, right? For the sake of conversation, you die, you wake up, and then there's a judgment.
Okay.
The 10 Commandments are the judgment. Like, let's just use that as the standard.
Okay.
What's the judge going to say? Innocent or guilty?
For me?
For you.
Probably guilty, but I feel like I can talk my way out of anything.
This is my favorite line in this whole thing. I can talk my way out of anything, but I'm probably guilty. No, we are guilty, and God holds us bare. I'm actually going to slip to it right here. But like we're bare before the holiness of God, and we should fear that. We should absolutely fear that. As it says in Hebrews 4. Oh goodness, now I'm not going to find it. But Hebrews 4:13, it says, "And there is no creature hidden from his sight, but all things are open and laid bare to the eyes of him with whom we have to do. Since then we have a great high priest." And so it goes on from there, but we are laid bare. There's nothing hidden from his sight. Omnipotence and omnipotence are critical key aspects in understanding of who God is. If you don't have that, you're going to have a distorted view of who God is.
Talk your way out of it.
Just about. Going back to what I said about like how like I feel like there's multiple levels, and I feel like we're already in like quote unquote hell. I feel like pretty much everything is forgiven here.
Everything is forgiven, but there are bad people, you know, and he doesn't see it, but I pray he does. I do pray he does. I pray he sees where we're going with this. Now let's skip near the end, because I think it's really interesting, because I get to the presentation of the gospel here.
It's really simple.
Okay.
Really, really simple. And let's get your thoughts on it.
Right on.
Right? So the reason we die, the Bible says, is wages. Wages is something we earn, right?
Right.
So we earned death through breaking things like the 10 Commandments, breaking things, rebelling, hating our father and mother, committing adultery. We're guilty of those things. I'm just as guilty too, right? And so it says that's the reason why we die. The wages of sin is death.
Okay.
Now, if you're in a courtroom, right? Imagine yourself in a courtroom. You're standing before the judge. You're giving an account of your life. You're like, oh my goodness, like I don't measure up to your standard, judge. And he, in order to be good, can't just flippantly throw your crimes out the window. Otherwise, he's a trash judge.
Yeah.
He's not good. He's just letting criminals roam free. And so, that's what Christians believe happened here when Jesus comes in and stays in the courtroom. He pays the fine in full. He steps in and lives a perfect life that we could never live. He dies the death that we actually deserved. And then he resurrected, because the Bible says that it couldn't hold him. Death could not hold him. He resurrects from the dead, basically like God's stamp of approval.
Right.
And then the call today, that's the reason we're like Christians talk to people constantly about this stuff, is that the call to us is to turn away from what we know we're doing is wrong and trust in his sacrifice. Just trust in him. And then his righteousness, his goodness gets paid into your account. You no longer represent yourself. He represents you before the judge. And so you can be legally dismissed before the judge. Sin's completely forgiven. And the promise is really cool. The Bible talks about us giving a new heart with new desires that actually desire things to do good, right? That actually want to do the things that like we know are good, but we just don't do it for some reason.
Yeah.
And that is what the Christians have called the gospel for 2,000 years. Have you ever heard that?
Yeah, I think so a little bit.
All right, we can end it here. He's going to talk about theories. We end it just by shaking hands. I asked him to consider it. He said he would. So be in prayer for Dominic here. He was a pleasure to talk to, and I hope this conversation blesses you. It helps you in your evangelistic encounters, and hopefully you glean some stuff from this episode today. Cool. I'll see you guys next time.